everyone, it's Shanda. Someone actually asked me if I could go more in depth about the differences between good girl versus good boy in regard to Chinese culture. Just also to let you guys know, I'm going to be going over this in English first and then Chinese second, or Cantonese second. So if you guys want to just go ahead and skip to the Cantonese, I will go ahead and leave the timestamp in the description box below, or you can find the time in the chapters scroll bar below and go ahead and skip to the Cantonese section. So I will go ahead and discuss the good girl aspect first. Growing up, I had the experience of both a Western and Chinese culture. Even though maybe I didn't have as much pressure as maybe I thought I did, or maybe I was in my own head, I did feel like I had a lot of pressure to be a certain way, to follow certain rules, whether unspoken or spoken. And these are some of the things that either I was told or that I felt like I had to do or not do based on what was implied. Never say no. Even if you don't want to do it, just you don't say no. Either you're closing yourself off to potential opportunity, which in some settings I definitely understand that. However, if it was other things, it was just rude to say it. Even as an adult, when I would travel to China with my mom or with family, if someone offered you something, I was always told not to say no thank you. If I said, oh no, it's okay, thank you, they would look at me and in front of the other person, not pulling me aside, say, why would you say no? You shouldn't say no. You never shut off the opportunity. You just say, oh, okay, sure, thank you. It's almost like 吹水. To me, that's what it felt like. Literal translation of that is like blowing water. I will probably go into that in another video, but basically the gist of that is kind of like, when you're responding with that, it's kind of like BSing or just kind of like shooting the breeze kind of thing. So you're not shutting someone down, you're just kind of keeping the conversation going and keeping it really light. But to me, maybe it was a Western culture, like American culture that I'm used to, where you politely decline if that's not something that interests you. You're not really to complain about anything. Anytime I would complain, they'd be like, no one wants to hear that. If you ever find a man one day, they're not gonna want to hear you complain. I mean, let's be honest, who wants to hear anyone complain? And you don't want to be that friend complaining to your other friend, but you're human, you do have feelings and you want to vent sometimes. And so you want to tell your friends or tell other people or tell your family, hey, this sucks, or talk about it, even though they may not want to hear about it. So they told me a lot that I was not allowed to complain or vent negative feelings, that I had to just kind of put on this happy demeanor all the time. Which brings me to, you have to remain relatively pleasant at all times, smiling. Something my mom always taught me. She never really told me the Cantonese translation for this. She kind of used English to her own way to describe this in English, which was Chinese people are always smiling and shaking hands above the table, but underneath they're kicking each other. She actually used English to describe that to me. That's exactly how she described it. So I'm assuming that's kind of like how it is, but it kind of reminded me of that. I think for that, she's more talking about like business and other type of relationships. This is more just as a daughter, I need to always kind of be pleasant and smiling and or keep like a positive mood and which goes into mild-tempered. You can't show that you're having a bad day. It's not that different from other cultures. There's just such a need to put out a good face. Also, even behind closed doors, though, I wasn't allowed to ever lose my temper, even though I did, obviously. I mean, there's only, you know, when you're a kid, you can't help it sometimes. Your brain is still developing. My male cousin, he lost his temper all the time. He still has a really bad temper, and he was allowed to do whatever he wanted. And then I felt a lot of pressure to have boys, and even my father-in-law asked my husband, because I have two daughters, if we were going to keep trying for a son. Whether or not we decide to have another child, it won't be because of trying for a male offspring. It will be because we want to, and being completely selfless and only thinking of your family first, like thinking of your family as in before you get married, your own family first as a daughter, and following through with what they think is best, how they think you should live your life, what you should do. Once you marry out, then you're supposed to follow through and be there with your husband's family traditionally, if you're a female marrying into a male's family. there are a lot of rituals that traditionally daughters do not do. It's just strictly for the sons. It wasn't until recently where daughters were allowed to start doing some of those rituals. For example, 清明節, the festival of the deceased ancestors that just passed Easter weekend. That was mostly a responsibility for the sons to perform and not the daughters. So things like that. Regarding the good girl aspect, that's about all I thought of. In regards to good boys, for good boys, it's mostly, at least in our family, don't go to jail, don't get a girl pregnant, don't do drugs. There are other things, like the sons are supposed to take care of the parents, and eventually a lot of the parents go live with the sons, or the photos of the ancestors that you pay respects to during certain times of the year usually remain at the eldest son's house, and then all the family members will go pay respects there. And there are certain things where the elder sons or the older sons or sons in general take care of, as opposed to daughters. So there are certain responsibilities there. The rules are not as stringent on males or sons as they are on daughters. If you have any comments or thoughts on this, or if there was anything that I left out that you wanted to add in or share your thoughts, please go ahead and leave that in the comments below. Please feel free to join the Discord group that I created for us to practice Cantonese and Mandarin together. The link will be in the description box. If you haven't already, I hope you consider subscribing, and the Cantonese portion should be starting soon. 大家好，上次咧有一個人係問我可唔可以多啲了解乖女同埋乖仔係有咩分別嘅？乖女咧唔可以玩 no， 譬如親戚啲朋友會咁樣同我講話，你下次去中國我帶你去玩啦，你就應該話哦 OK 好啊，下次帶我去啦。你應該咁樣同人哋講，係等於同人哋吹下水咁樣咯，唔一定要好認真。你自己心入邊係想玩 no， 你唔可以咁樣講㗎。你應該淨係成日同人哋講 OK 好冇問題。我媽同埋我姨媽嗰時成日都係話人哋唔中意聽 no 嘅。第二咧，阿媽就成日話我嗰時成日嘟長個嘴，可以掛個豉油樽，同埋或者我唔開心嗰時候會講俾佢聽，佢話你唔可以咁樣嘅，人哋唔會中意聽嘅，唔會中意同埋你一齊嘅。如果你咁樣就咁呢一樣嘢咧，唔係淨係即係中國人入邊嚟講啦，你喺你啲朋友圈入邊，你都唔會想同人哋唔開心嘅時候成日講俾佢哋聽啫，因為你唔想成日喺度 complain。但係你唔開心嘅時候，你都應該同啲朋友啊或者同啲親戚講噶嘛，因為你唔可以全部啲嘢放住喺個心入邊嘅，對你自己都唔好噶嘛。同埋你成日要笑，唔可以窿埋塊面。我媽嗰時就成日咁樣講，人哋唔想同你結婚嘅，你窿埋塊面就成日都想喺度用呢啲嘢嚟嚇親我或者教我。仲有唔可以發脾氣，你唔可以對其他人發脾氣，因為要諗住你個 face， 你個面你個 face 點樣 portray 出去，即係人哋其他人見到你嘅時候會見到啲咩嘢，會諗到啲咩嘢，你成日都要諗住呢一樣嘢嘅。哦，仲有要成日諗屋企人先，同埋要好聽話好乖，你自己想做嗰啲嘢唔可以做，你要跟住你屋企人講嘅。你嫁咗出去就要聽你 in-laws 嗰邊啲人講嘅。要生仔，我而家有2個細路女啊嘛。我老公個爸咧，其實得即係我個 father-in-law 咧，都有問我老公，我哋會唔會繼續生細路仔？希望生個仔。我哋會唔會繼續生細路仔咧？都唔會諗起呢一樣嘢，就係咁簡單嘅。湊細路仔、生細路仔，全部都好辛苦嘅。乖仔咧，我哋屋企入邊嚟講咧，啲仔咧就係好多都係縱壞嘅，佢哋想做乜就可以做乜。如果佢哋唔食毒藥，又唔坐監，唔係結婚之前生細路仔，同埋可以揾到嘢做。如果佢哋跟呢幾樣好簡單嘅嘢咧，佢哋就已經喺我哋屋企嚟講咧，同埋我老公屋企嚟講咧，已經算乖仔啦。 嗰陣時去拜山係淨係俾啲仔去做嘅，去拜嘅，同埋清明節咧，好似淨係啲仔去做嘅，去清啲嘢啊，同埋去點香啊，燒嗰啲錢同埋其他嗰啲嘢俾啲過咗嗰啲親戚，同埋啲親戚啲相咧係放喺最大嗰個仔個屋企，一年幾次咧，你哋就即係成家人咧就過去嗰度拜下。好，如果有啲咩嘢我唔記得講咧，或者你哋想加啲咩嘢咧，你就喺 comments 嗰度寫啦。希望你哋會 subscribe。如果你哋想同我哋一齊練習啲廣東話同埋國語咧，你就可以撳下邊個 description box 入邊嗰個 link 去嗰個 Discord group。我哋個個星期都會一齊傾同埋練習啲廣東話。好，下次再見，拜拜。